the show where we explore the moments people have to let go of destructive pattern, limiting identity, and the internal battle in order to rebuild their life with purpose and clarity. Our today's guest is David Bybee, head coach for Team USA Olympic Kickboxing, a world heavyweight champion, a kickboxing champion, author of the Warrior Bloodline, and the man who has built multi-million dollars merchant arts empire from plastic back brace and backroom couch. David's stories did not just begin with glory; it began with dark Kentucky highway in 1982 with the loss of his only father figure he knew. What followed was a childhood of trauma, abandonment, and violence. Until martial art gave him somewhere to pull all of it. By 23, he was a world champion, and then a single brutal window. He lost almost everything: his title, his relationship, his dojo, his spine, and his mother. And at the bottom of it all, his wife left him in the hospital. He did not quit, and today we are going to find out what exactly took to get back up. David, it's a pleasure and honor having the show.
Yes, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I'm
Thank
glad
you
to be
so
here.
much.
Hope to share my story.
So, David, you
Yeah.
lost your father figure at age 6 in a highway collision and spends childhood surviving systematic trauma, violence, and abandonment. Most people would have been broken by that before they were turned out. What kept you moving, and where did you find the will to keep going when the environment around you were designed to actually destroy you?
So it's an interesting question. The loss that occurred, we were in a head-on collision with a semi, and it just uprooted and changed my life. Obviously, got thrown into a house of abuse from my own grandma who hated my existence. So obviously, at such a young age, I didn't have a will per se, but I internalized a lot of the hatred and stuff that was cast upon me. And it formed who I was as I was growing up and constantly looking for approval. And I found the only way to get approval was through, accomplishments. If I was the fastest in the class, people, oh, wow, look at that. Look at Bybee, or if I got in street fights, and then the neighborhood kids would start looking at me, and then that turned into my professional career. But really, excuse me, to kind of get to that question, it was a mental switch for me of not accepting what people say, because this world is filled with a lot of naysayers or people that tell you, oh, you'll never do that. You can't do this. And sadly, there's a lot of people that agree with it, and they take that for, okay, they said I can't do it, so I won't. Or they become a product of their upbringing, and they say, oh, well, because I lived this way, I can't beat it. And I decided, I was like, no, you can't tell me what I can and cannot do. And when I did that, I said, I quit being a victim, and I'm like, no, I'm going to prove you wrong. So
Yeah, amazing.
and I
Amazing.
went out and I did that.
It really take a whole lot to be able to kind of, putting them wrong out despite all the happening. It's really a whole lot. So you step into the world stage out in Paris as a massive underdog and won the world heavyweight champion.
Yes.
Kickboxing championship.
Yeah.
At 23. What did that moment feel like, and how long did it last before everything collapsed?
So that was one of the most amazing feelings ever. It was a true Rocky story. So I flew over to Paris, and I was a part of an 8-man U.S. team, and I watched every single one of our athletes lose. Luckily, I was the first one on deck, and I was the first one to fight. I fought my first day. I fought Poland, and I beat Poland. I'm like, all right, here we go. We're on our way. And then I watched all the other teammates go in, fight after fight after fight, and just get annihilated. And I was like, oh man. And then come day 2, I was the last one there. And then over the course of the 4 days, I'm fighting, and I keep winning. And then I make it to the finals. As I was going on through that, it was great because I was getting booed and whistled and mean things said to me on day 1. But by the end of day 4 and beginning of day 5, I started to earn respect. That, I was getting a couple claps here and there, but no boos. When I went out, the feeling I had to go out as I was walking through the tunnel, I watched the fight before me. It was actually a Polish fighter fighting France, and I felt the Polish fighter won. And I watched him, and he lost. It went to the decision, and all the judges said for France. And my corner at the time, they looked at me and go, well, what's going to happen? It's just it's just going to go France no matter what. So the Polish guy came out and I stopped him, and I don't speak Polish, but I said, I'm like, you're number one. And he just kind of nodded his head. And he was sad as he walked past. So I went out there and I beat my guy. I dropped him to the canvas twice, 2 body shot in the first round, body shot in the second round. And then by the end of that, it was amazing because the audience in the stadium at first, when I walked out, it was silence. They didn't boo, they didn't clap, they didn't do anything. And then when Johan Lemaire came out, they started an uproar. And then when I dropped him the first time, it just went quiet. And then when I dropped him the second time, they started cheering for me. So it was really kind of cool. But then they rose my hand, and it was honestly one of the greatest feelings ever. And the great thing about that is that same Polish fighter that lost before I went out, he gave me his national team jacket as a thank you for that, which is kind of cool. So I still have that today, a Polish national kickboxing jacket given to me by one of the athletes. So it was really cool. And then it was probably about 3 years went by, and I broke my back. And that was one of the darkest days of my life. Because I'm in the hospital for a straight month. And my wife left me while I was in the hospital, so it was just an uproar. The doctors told me I was never going to be able to do this. Would I do again? It was rough. It was another point in time where I built my identity on who I was, David Bybee, the champion, David Bybee, the kickboxer, David Bybee, all these things, just to kind of prove the voices in my head from my past, and then wrong. But then the second I lost everything, I was like, who am I now? What am I without these things? And that was hard for me to kind of get over. But again, that was where I really love the title of your show, Quit to Win. But that was another really moment where I had to quit that person and become who I really am. So it was a long tragedy. I came to God and really had a deep understanding, and it saved me. Honestly, he truly saved me. So
that was really a whole lot. I'm just imagining the betrayal of your wife getting to leave you, wife being in the hospital when you needed it the most, and the fact that a whole lot of sin was coming into it.
And I became, I was homeless. I had nowhere to go when I got out of the hospital. It was tragic. It was bad, but I'm still here, and I turned it around. And
so you say the shift from motivation to robotic execution is what separates survivor and a quitter. What does robotic execution actually look like in practice, especially when the emotional state is devastated and the physical state is a plastic back brace? So
I'll explain the plastic shell so people understand. So I didn't have insurance, and the doctor was like, "Oh, I'm not gonna do any surgery on you. You'll heal." I was like, or whatever. I didn't want surgery anyway. So they made this custom shell to keep my whole body still and not moving. And so in order to move or do anything, I had to wrap this shell around this plastic, spine basically around my whole body. So that's where that comes from. But the robotic execution is basically discipline. Discipline is easy when you're motivated, but discipline really comes through when you're not motivated. That's a true test of your discipline. And discipline is really what it takes. You can be in the highest of highs and it's easy, but when you're in the lowest of lows, that's when you need it the most. When you don't want to get up and do it, you have to. Anybody that has a job 9 to 5 or whatever, there's days they don't want to go, but what do? They get up, they go to work. That's discipline, even if you don't want to. And you can take that same discipline and apply it to all aspects of your life. And for me, I had to take that discipline and say, okay, I can't walk, but I'm going to take one step today. And then tomorrow I'm going to take one step again. And then, all right, now I'm going to take 2 steps, even if I didn't want to, no matter the pain, no matter what it was. It's like, that's just the discipline and the drive. Like, okay, I'm going to fucking do this. Sorry. But, I'm going to do this and I'm going to push forward. But that's the robotic execution. Just take your mind out of the equation sometimes and just go. Just do it. You have to put the work in regardless.
Yeah, you have to put your work. Yeah, it's regardless.
You have to put the work in.
Amazing.
If you think about it, put the work in. So you can put the work in and be nothing. That's putting the work in. You're working to be nothing, or you can put the work in and be something. So it's your choice inevitably. You can either decide to be nothing, which is, and that's you're working to become nothing, or you can decide to be something, whatever that is in your
Yeah,
life.
amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. So you went from broken and identity stripping to a 13,000 foot square combat academy and head coach for Team USA. What was the most important decision in that rebuilding arc? The one that made everything as possible.
Again, the discipline and decision to not give up. People are too easy to give up. So I put all my eggs in this one basket. I knew that fighting wasn't going to make me a lot of money, and it didn't. I got free travel across the world and a few $1,000 here and there, but it was nothing major. I knew the longevity was going to be doing what I'm doing now, and be coaching and teaching, owning my own academy. So the simple refusal to give up. I knew that no matter what, no matter how bad it was, because we struggled, and every business still struggles, but we had a lot of struggles. And the difference is like knowing I have no backup plan. There's nothing I can do. I don't know what I will do if something happens to this. I'm like, I can't rely on our government. I don't want to. It's like, I'm going to go flip burgers somewhere. And if I do that's my fault because I chose the path that I'm on. And so knowing that I have nowhere else to go, so I have to make this work was quintessential for me. It's like, okay, you embrace the suck and you grind through it. You have to, every day you get up and you go and you go. And I didn't have a business degree, so I definitely made a lot of mistakes in my career. But and I'm still here, and I've made something what we do. And now I've become, through my son. My son is actually following in my footsteps, and which is an amazing thing. He's a professional fighter, and he's a world champion, and I'm really proud of him. And he was, I brought him to one of the training camps for Team USA, and he ended up making the team. But that's how I kind of got re-involved with it. And the gentleman that was hosting camp remembered me. He's like, he's like, Bybee. He's like, I was there with you in Paris. And so that was kind of my doorway. And then a few years later, they asked me to kind of take the reins of the coaching element. And I was like, absolutely. So amazing. Now I coach the Olympic team, and I coach a whole bunch of athletes here at our academy. And, we have a good time impacting people daily.
It's really amazing. Yeah. Embrace the suck. Yeah. And grind through it. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. So you speak openly about unyielding faith in God as a strategic pyramid
Yes.
for someone who has been through what you have been through, abandoned, betrayed, broken. How does faith survive that? And how does it collapse under that weight?
So that's a good. I had nowhere, and here's another interesting part of my story. When I was younger, my family got involved with this church, and then as I got older, I was still going to that church. And then after I broke my back, well, actually prior to breaking my back, my ex-wife got me kicked out of my church. So I was like, okay, I was abandoned. I was like, again. And so after I broke my back, I tried to go back. I tried to go back to church, and they actually kicked me back out again. It's like, well, you can't come here. And I was like, what? I'm like, even God doesn't want me. I'm like, what's going on? But that was actually the best thing that ever happened to me, because I knew at that point in time, God isn't necessarily just somebody that is in a building. They're with you. But now I've gone forward. I've become a member of another church, and work and do all kinds of stuff with them and through them. But that faith really has been shown to me. And I told you, literally, God saved my life, multiple times. Or I shouldn't be alive here today, and so I know I'm here to do something, because I shouldn't be here. I definitely shouldn't be here. And there's a couple. I got my book that is just coming out. The Bloodline. So it kind of goes into details about what happened in that, on how I literally should have died multiple times, but God brought me back, and so I'm here because of him. But that faith is working and believing in something, even if you can't see it, but it's there. So and I've had the lucky opportunity to see it multiple times, and so definitely I have to do what I got to do to make sure that
amazing.
people to help people know. But that's what kind of
Yeah,
helped me.
thank you so much for sharing. So you watch your son Austin now, his own world title. You passed the
Yes,
torch. What does
yes.
that moment mean to a man who lost his father figures at 6 years old? And what did it take to become the father he never had?
Great, good question. Number one, it was a rough
Yeah.
start with my son training. He was on. I started teaching him when he was about
Oh,
4. I had brought him on that. I started teaching when he was 4. By the time he was 6, I kicked him out. I was like, "Get out of here!" I'm like, "You're not on these mats," you know. So I kicked him out. We put him in gymnastics, and he was in gymnastics for all the way up until he was 13. So he was there for a good amount of time, and he was good at it. He was really, really good at gymnastics. But then he came to me afterwards and he goes, "All right, Dad," he goes, "I want to give this a shot." So internally, I'm like,
yeah.
yeah, I was super happy, but I couldn't let him see
Yeah.
that. So externally, I'm like, "All right, buddy, we'll see," you know. So we definitely had our up and downs on the mats where he would back talk or whatever, and I'd literally kick him upside the head. I'm like, "You don't
Yeah.
talk to me that way" on my floor. But now, honestly, it's brought us closer, so close. I mean, we have a connection through fighting, and obviously a father-son connection bond that's just gotten closer because of this. We've been able to go through. So the feeling of that is absolutely amazing. You know, it's terrifying at the same time, you know, because you're watching your own, you know, blood go up into the
Drink. Yeah.
ring and potentially get hurt, you know, or
Yeah.
lose and do it. It's definitely a tough thing, but that's really brought us close together, and being able to pass that torch to him is a blessing as well. So like, I'm building this empire for him, you know, and this is my legacy that I choose. Like I came up with a no father figure, and I came up in a very abusive situation, and it's very easy, and to go and to do the same things and be a negligent father, be somebody that's not there. So, you know, because you can grow to be a product of your surroundings, you know, because that's all you know. But I really had to sit down and internally and be like, you know what? I don't want to do this for my son. I want to do what I would want for me to him. And that's how I kind of looked at that, is like, I want to do for you what I never had. And so that's my guide
Yeah.
right there.
Amazing. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing. So your book is called
Of
The
course.
Warrior Bloodline. What does warrior
Yes.
means to you? Not the martial art version, but the human ones, and who qualify?
Another great question. So a warrior isn't just somebody that fights. A warrior isn't built in a ring. A warrior is somebody that has battles and fights battles you never know, you know, whether that's internal, external, whatever it is. A real warrior is defined by how they, you know, live their life, you know, in not just in the seen moments, but the unseen moments, because we all have demons we got to deal with. So that's kind of where the warrior comes from. It's like, are you going to stand up? Are you going to fight for yourself when nobody looks? Or are you going to, you know, cower down and be there, you know? So that's how that
Yeah.
is. That's what the
Yeah.
warrior
Warrior
means
is
to me.
more like from the person who doesn't just cower around. Yeah. Yeah. This is really amazing.
Yeah.
So for someone listening right
Yeah.
now,
Yeah.
who is on their own version of that backroom couch, broken, stripping of identity, not sure they have anything left, what is the first critical move that you advise them to take?
I would pray, honestly, you know, and be comfortable in the
Mm.
silence. And that's the hard part. That's truly the hardest part. I know that backroom couch for me was the lowest point of my life, the absolute ground breaking. That was the moment of my life. And to kind of get personal, like, I was homeless. I had a plastic shell, and a family that I knew took me in. So I was lucky because my future ex like changed the locks and was like, "You find your own way." So I was like, okay, you know, I can't walk, I can't do anything, and luckily this family took me in. And so I'm laying on my couch on this like sofa bed with this brace across it. It's in the middle of the night, and I was just done. You know, like, the man I had become, you know, the champion, the martial artist, all the fighter, all the stuff is gone. I can't do it anymore. So that was my identity, is as formed through the years, is like, okay, the only way people are going to like and love me or want to be around me is because of this identity of who I was. but that wasn't really me. That was just what I did. And so I didn't have that correlation yet. And so laying on that couch, knowing my ex or future ex was with another person while I'm broken, I decided, I got up or rolled off the couch and crawled my way to the kitchen. And I took every single pill I had in my pain jar, every single one. And I went back to the bed and I said a prayer. And then somehow a half a day later, I woke up. Nobody knew. And the moment I woke up, I said, "Oh my God, what did I do?" And I immediately was filled with my son. Like, what did I do? I could have just made my son the same thing as me, fatherless. I could have done that to him. And it was a real realization of for me at that moment in time, like, I'm here for a purpose. We're all here for a purpose. But for somebody, if they're in that situation, that obviously is not the right thing to do. But pray and be okay in the silence. Be okay in the pain. Pain is temporary. You will, become stronger from it. And embrace the suck. That is life. Life is short enough as it is. Shit, I'm almost 50 years old now. It's like, oh man, I'm dwindling down already. And it's take the time you have and just go with it.
Amazing. Oh, to pray and find comfort in the silence, find comfort in the pain.
Absolutely.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. So you coach
Of
Olympic
course, yes.
athlete and you coach everybody.
Yes.
What is the single biggest mental blind spot you see in higher performance? The things that keep talented, disciplined people from breaking through their own self.
That's a good question. And honestly, it is drive, and fear of success. Honestly, I think too. From the athletes I've seen, we have some super talented athletes that I've worked with, and super talented. But in the United States, we're different, which not in a good way. Everybody wants to be a backyard champion, but they don't want to go out and test themselves in the real world, and I come across that. I'm like, hey, like, shoot, okay, you won this podunk title in your backyard. Okay, yeah, anybody can get that. Like, okay, now let's go to Europe. Let's go, let's go to Asia. You want to be a champion. Now it's the time to go prove it. And they're like, it's like, okay, so the fear of success, I believe, is a big thing. And I know I've had that, like, it paralyzes you sometimes, that fear of the unknown. Like, can I do it? That self-doubt. So my answer for people, when I tell people, is you don't want to have a regret one day, because you're all going to become my age at some point in time. And when you're my age, you can't do it anymore. So you're going to sit there like, oh man, I wish I could have done this. Oh man, I wish I could have done that. But win, lose, or draw, it doesn't matter. How many people can say that they've done whatever it is they're trying to do? You know what I mean? Like, if you want to go that extra step and you fail, okay, it's only failing if you don't learn. If you don't succeed the first shot and you just give it up, yeah, that's a failure. You're like, oh, okay, not good. That's a failure. But if you can sit back and say, okay, what did I do wrong? How can I make that better? That is when your failure becomes a learning lesson. And then that's not failing, you're learning. And that's something I tell all of our fighters, don't go out there and be worried about the loss. Okay. It's like, what was the reason behind the loss? If you lost, what's the reason behind it? Because sometimes easy success is not good for you. Because if you succeed and you win and you won, even though might have been wrong, you're not going to go back and correct what you were doing wrong. And then when you fight somebody that's better, those mistakes you made aren't gonna last. They're gonna capitalize on your mistakes, and that's every time somebody gets better, that's gonna be tougher.
The whole of inside the pick. Yeah, it's failure if you don't learn from it. Then that really got me.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got to learn from something, and sadly, there's people out there that just, I lost, okay, and they don't do anything from it, or they give up too easy. Nothing we want in life is easy. If you want it, you got to go out there. You got to be willing to bleed for it, per se.
So lastly, you have converted childhood trauma, professional betrayal, physical disruption, and personal abandonment into fuel for someone who is still carrying their damage as a weight rather than a weapon. What need to shift, and how does that shift?
Another really good question, man. it's so easy to be a weight and have that baggage. Somebody said I was this, somebody said I was that, right? And that's really the easy way. Honestly, there's no easy way to pull yourself out of a hole. You've got to put the work in. You know, if here's a good analogy. If somebody digs a 7-foot trench and you fall into it, are you just going to sit there and wallow like, oh, or are you going to try to claw and grab and do whatever you can to get out of it? You know, you just can't sit there. So that's the hard part. Everybody has to have a why. And this is what I tell my athletes, you know, what is your why? Like, for example, why do you do this podcast? That's answer that question for me. Why do you do this podcast?
Okay, why I do this podcast? I think it's more like
Yeah, this is going to help my answer. You'll see what I'm getting at.
okay. I think
So
before I actually get started,
why do you do this
it was the
podcast?
fact that I think I had to repeat a particular level in higher institution. My mate has already graduated 2-3 sets, and it just dawned on me that those who actually get to succeed, so what did they see different? Because I know that they had their own share of failure, but despite the failure, they didn't quit. They keep showing up over and over until they actually get it. And that will just make me say, I think I should actually more like get started with something like this, where why don't people actually sometimes, when did they quit, why did they quit, and when did the transition become so evident? And yeah, it has. And listening to story every now and then has really more like changed my perspective.
Good. So that is your why. So now there's going to be days you don't want to do this. So what is the reason you get up and you do it? Okay. So you don't have to answer that question. That's for you. But that's what everybody has to have. You have to have the what you want, right? This is the what. And the why is okay, well, this is why I'm going to do it. And then when you have the why, you need to understand, okay, what is going to push you when you don't want to do it? And that's something personal. It's like, okay, you know what? I don't want to go to the gym today, but I got to go because, you know, X, Y, and Z. So you have to find your internal why. What is going to push you to go when you don't want to? And that's different for everybody. You know, everybody has their own why, you know. You have to find yours. And for me, mine was kind of a sick why, you know, mine was to prove everybody wrong. Like, okay, well, you said this, watch me prove you wrong. And, you know, that's not necessarily the healthy reason, but that's what pushed me to get up, because there was times I'd have nightmares and I'd wake up and like I was fighting and nothing was working. And I was like, oh my God, you know, it's like, I got to go run. My opponent is training harder than I am. It'd be like 2-3 o'clock in the morning. I'd be out hitting the pavement, you know, doing, or go to the gym and do bag work for hours until my knuckles were bleeding. You know, it's just, you have to have your why that's going to push you when you don't want to be pushed.
Yeah, thank you so much. So, from our audience who would love to kind of reach out to you, buy your book, and follow your various platforms, how can they reach out, and where's the best?
Yeah, they can email me right now. This is the book, The Warrior Bloodline. This is actually kind of what it'll look like. It's at the editor right now, and by the end of June, it'll come out with the editor, and then we'll go out. We'll do the mass productions and stuff from there. And that's really a story of, you know, it's an autobiography of my life and the steps I took, you know, and what happened. So if you want to be interested or read and see, you know, about my why and how my why was forged, you can pick that up. But you can email me. My email is worldchampx3@gmail. And if somebody wants a copy, I'll send them how we're gonna ship it as soon as it comes out. So
thank you so much, David. This has really been an amazing conversation, and thank you so much.
Yeah, I had a great time
with us.
Thank you.
You left. David, thank you so much for bringing this level of honesty and warrior conviction to quit. So, you're a reminder that discipline is not what you feel. It's what you do.
No.
Yeah, it's what you do. And
Yes.
the darkest moments are not the end of your stories, about the forge where your legacy is built. One, this audience actually have to carry for long after this episode ends. And if today's move something in you, share this episode with someone, their own back, room, couch, or season. Yeah, they need to know someone comes back from the worst. Yeah, it is really a pleasure and honor once again having you on the show, David.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.